Capital Property Fund is selling a portfolio of property letting enterprises to Ascension Properties. Now, we can dispute the numbers because the CEO is with us in studio. And Ashraf, welcome. Ashraf Mohamed is CEO of Ascension Properties. It's a huge deal. Well, we thought it was a 10 billion rand deal. You say it's more like a 1 billion rand deal.
Well, it is a 1 billion rand deal because, we have limitations when it comes to borrowings,
yes,
given the current size of
You're big,
our
but
portfolio.
not that big.
Exactly. We are certainly targeting 10 billion rand in 3 years from now, but baby steps first, and this is our first major transaction that we are doing. It will effectively take the portfolio value of properties under management to 2.2 billion.
So doubling.
Once it's completed, and that the effective date will be the 1st of December.
So you listed in June, July this year, so it's a very much a new listed company, and we know this is where all the action's been in the listed property sector in South Africa. And in particular, half of your clients renting properties from you, and it's in the commercial space, is government.
Well, 68% of the portfolio or of our revenues is government, and that's where our focus is. Although with this transaction that will reduce somewhat, but then we are at this point just having discussions to purchase other properties where it will take that number back to between 65 and 70% of the portfolio. So we are targeting properties under management of 3 billion rand by June next year.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No, get on.
I just wanted to ask, were you able to purchase this portfolio at a good price? Because as we speak today, property valuations are pretty
steep.
Well, property valuations are steep, and part of our intention is to increase the liquidity of the portfolio. When we look at our purchase price and our average cost of purchasing the portfolio, then it's effectively yield neutral to slightly positive.
Okay.
The banks have been very generous with us when it has come to borrowing rates to date, and
why? Are they treating you differently?
Well, almost from the moment we've listed, it has certainly been different in the way that we've been able to negotiate rates on our property purchases. But more importantly are also the terms that banks are offering generally in the marketplace. For example, I'm now hearing that banks are offering commercial lenders, unlisteds, loan to values of up to 75 to 80%. So that's certainly becoming a space where there's increasing competition right now.
Yeah, look, what happened is that a lot of the big property companies just go straight to the commercial paper market. They bypass the banks because you can borrow money significantly cheaper directly from investors via commercial paper than you can via the banks. So the banks are feeling the pressure now, and they've got to cut their margins and make it more generous for the property companies to go back to the bank instead of going. Look, only the big ones have gone into the commercial paper market, but it has happened to a reasonably large extent over the last, 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. But a question to Ashraf, how are you going to get to 10 billion? Because at 2.5 billion, you just haven't got economies. It just doesn't work.
Well, when we are looking at a number of portfolios, and when we look at our pipeline outside of this transaction, that pipeline sits at 2.5 billion rand. So when I say 3 billion rand by June next year, I consider that pretty much a gettable target.
And you're going to use what, 40% gearing?
We'll be using 40% gearing, issuing paper. When we came out prior to listing, one of our stated intentions was to take over portfolios owned by black entrepreneurs who were certainly indebted to the banks and could not take their equity out of the transactions. We are in the process of having those discussions with 2 vendors, and we'll be issuing equity to them.
Okay.
So they'll be realizing that equity, and
then
they'll
dispose it over a period.
Correct.
Or whatever.
Correct, and 1 or 2 of them may join our board as well.
And are all your leases signed?
Yes.
Okay.
No, one of the conditions, and it's a discussion that we have on a regular basis, is whenever we engage with the seller, it's subject to approval from the client. So the deal falls if the client doesn't.
Actually, quite surprising. People will pay you rental, but they don't want to sign a lease. But they're happy to pay you rent each month, but they don't want to sign a piece of paper.
But on that point, what about the reverse? Those are happy to sign who aren't paying, and not to be rude, but if you say 2/3 of your revenue coming from government clients, and there's been a bit of a track record.
They're not notoriously good payers.
No.
Well, you hear that from the parties who aren't getting paid, and then you speak to ourselves and Robosis, and we are getting paid on time and regularly. So, never had any issues collecting rent. So I think there is always negative news, and it seems as though people like to jump onto that rather than the positives.
And what's your current yield on your portfolio?
If you take the A units and they closed at R4 today, then the yield on the A units is trading at around 9.5.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
And the B units are at 9.2.
So this is your niche, servicing government clients and servicing empowered clients. So will you remain a South African business? Are you looking for properties outside or north of South Africa?
No, we're certainly not looking outside of South Africa. This particular fund is focused on South Africa. Our two areas of focus are Gauteng and the Western Cape. We do have a small representation in Nelspruit, but that's just a node where we've almost picked up on client demand, and we're just facilitating our clients.
And the sectors you're in, is it commercial, retail for the most part?
It's offices. It's 94% offices, and then the 6% retail is effectively the retail at the bottom of the office blocks.
Okay.